So another thing that I was grappling with in teaching listening skills, and remembering also what it was like for me to learn NVC when I was starting out, and continue to sometimes struggle with even to this day, is we can learn the skills, we can learn the tools, we can learn the capacities. And yet when the stakes are high, when you're in the middle of a conflict, when you're in an argument with your partner or your friend or your family member, suddenly something happens where you lose access to those skills. And you're like back in Groundhog Day, back in the old patterns, back in the same old conflicts. And that there can be a deep sense of frustration, even inner judgment and shame. Like, why is it that when I'm in this context, I can't do the thing that I so know I can do in a different setting? And as we were talking about this, we started to realize that there was something really valuable about this particular conundrum as well. And that's when Yuri told me his judo story.
All right, so allow me a quick digression to tell you the judo story. So on top of being a designer and co-hosting the Lab for Listening, I also coach judo, which is something that I've just started to do now that I've stopped competing. And the reason I want to tell you this story is because what I learned coaching judo became very, very critically important for then how Nathra and I also start to structure the class. So the judo story. The setting is the judo club, and it's in the basement of this big brick building in South Boston. And with that description alone, I'm sure the image that's coming up to your mind is actually pretty accurate to how it looks. And I'm there, we're coaching judo. There's a couple of guys there, mostly guys. And you can imagine the type of guys who would want to come in on a Wednesday afternoon to learn some judo. Usually it's people who have either done this as kids and they sort of dropped off for a little while, or it's people who, they've always watched a lot of action movies and they want to like test themselves and feel really, really cool. So they say, hey, I'm going to apply myself and just see how awesome I really can be. And so they show up at judo, and it's a lot of these, already fairly tough and intimidating looking individuals wanting to learn this stuff. And the thing that's interesting is, during the coaching, during the class, I would teach them all the moves, we would drill them, we would repeat them, repeat. You're doing the same move 100 times. Everyone's getting it. They're very good at that part. Then came the point when you ask them to spar with each other. It's not right on the first day, but after they've been going for a little while, you allow them to spar with each other. And the thing that happens is that nothing's changed. It's just now they're sparring. But as soon as they get out onto the mat together, they go into this freeze response. It's almost like a deer in the headlights. And you can see all the anxiety and the nerves just popping up. And they grab hold of each other. And all of the moves that we've drilled into them and that they've practiced, and they've perfected, honestly, they've gotten quite good in practice, it just goes right out the window. Like they don't remember a single thing of it. And only after, a long time do they start remembering. It's like, hey, maybe I should move my feet a little bit, or I should do this, or I should do that. And this might not be the first sparring session. This might be, the 10th sparring session, when something will click and they'll say like, okay, well, maybe I'll try something and not have that immediate deer in the headlights move. So I went to play a little experiment on some of the people who went into the judo coaching. And what I did was that instead of training any moves, all I did was that I asked them to play this game that I started to call Battle Tag. All it is that you don't need to throw, you don't need to do anything. All you need to do is go pick a partner, and then you start moving. And the game, it's a game, is that you have to tag the other person on their shoulder blade. And whoever gets to the first 10 shoulder blade taps wins, and then you can switch partners or take a break. And the interesting thing that happens is because you've reduced the pressure that you're not getting thrown anymore, you're not going to get hurt, it's just a game. All of a sudden, the people, while playing this game, they started to move in a way that they weren't moving when sparring. You could see them being agile, being tricky, being cunning, trying to, do all these, fancy tricks to try to win. And the thing that I realized is that by reducing the pressure on the person, you help a person feel safer and they open up a little bit more. And so then when we started sparring after playing the game, again, nothing's changed. All you've done now, though, is just shifted the context a little bit. And because they've gotten used to moving and existing in this more sneakier, agile way while trying to spar or play a game with another person, now when it came to sparring, they didn't have that immediate freeze response anymore. They were able to maintain some of that same agility and kind of their same thinking, even though they were sparring, something that used to send them completely into like this frozen deer in the headlights state. So the moral of the story is, with that realization, we were thinking, how can we actually apply this in class? And that was the trick, is that instead of asking people to go in with all of the most difficult conversations, the most challenging situations, what Nathan and I focus on is to create situations or little role plays where it's safe and you reduce the pressure on practicing the moves. And you just allow people to approach anything the way they would want to, and you sort of make a game out of it. But because the people learn how to approach these situations in a way that's comfortable for them, then they gain the agency in order to then approach more and more challenging situations in more and more challenging contexts. And with that in mind, that's actually something that we started to see in time as our class progressed.